At a school reunion, my wife, Rachel, was playing a game of truth or dare. Her old boyfriend, Ethan, looked straight at her and asked, "If you had married me, would you have wanted kids?" Rachel smiled and said, "Of course I would." Everyone there knew that Rachel didn't want kids, and I'd even had a vasectomy 5 years ago because of it. The room went quiet, everyone waiting to see how I'd react. I just gave a small smile and said, "Since you two clearly still have feelings for each other, maybe we should find some time to get a divorce. Tonight, we're having a class reunion. Get ready and drive over to pick me up for dinner. Don't be late." When I got this voice message from Rachel, I was a little surprised. Just a week ago, I was 10 minutes late for a date with Rachel because of an urgent meeting at work. Rachel had ignored me for the whole week after that. No calls, no texts, and she even moved into the spare bedroom. Every time we saw each other, she looked like she was about to explode. We've been married for 5 years, so I know Rachel's personality pretty well. She's stubborn, and getting her to say sorry or admit she's wrong is almost impossible. So every time we argue, I end up being the one to apologize and make her happy to end it. This was the first time Rachel had taken the initiative to message me during a Cold War. To me, it seemed like her way of giving me a chance. If I made a move and showed some effort, she might let me make it up to her. With that thought, I suddenly felt much better. Over the past few days, Rachel had tested my patience, but I couldn't bring myself to be mad at her. All I could do was try to please her. If I didn't take this opportunity, I was worried Rachel might never be nice to me again. I immediately asked my boss for some time off and drove straight to a big shopping mall downtown. Rachel had been wanting a specific designer handbag for a while. Every time we went to the mall, she'd try it on and hold on to it for a long time. But the price, over $500, always made us think twice. I stood at the counter for a long time, looking at the bag. Finally, I decided to just go for it and bought it. As long as Rachel was happy, no matter how much it cost, it felt worth it. After getting the bag, I rushed back home. It was still early enough to avoid the evening rush hour, and the roads were pretty clear. It would only take about 10 minutes to get home. At the last traffic light, I sent Rachel a voice message. "Honey, I'll be at our apartment complex in a few minutes. Get ready, and I got you a little surprise." After a turn, I arrived at the entrance of our complex. I opened my phone, and our chat was still stuck on the voice message I sent. Rachel hadn't replied, but I didn't want to rush her. Instead, I decided to take care of some unfinished work in the car. As one of the most experienced employees at the company, my manager really valued me. Not only did I get promoted and receive raises, but every time I asked for time off, it was approved without hesitation. If I delayed my work, it would seem unprofessional. I put my phone down and focused completely on the numbers on my screen. "Ben, open the door!" The sudden banging on the car door startled me. I turned and saw Rachel standing outside, her face as dark as a thundercloud. "Don't be mad, honey. I'm sorry." I forced a smile and quickly unlocked the car door. "My whole good mood is ruined now. How can you be so unreliable? It's so hot. Why didn't you just park in the garage?" Rachel kept complaining as she got into the car, looking furious. I was a little surprised and took out the gift from the back seat. "Honey, you look really pretty today. It's like going back to when we first met. You wore a white dress back then, and there was this sweet, delicate feeling about you. This is the bag you've wanted for so long. I got it for you. Are you happy?" When she saw the bag, Rachel's expression softened, and a smile finally appeared on her face. "Well, of course I'm pretty. Isn't that obvious?" I leaned in, pointing to my lips with a smile. "Does this bag get me a kiss?" Rachel froze for a moment, gently pushing my head away. "Stop it. If we're late for the reunion, it won't be good." I didn't push it. I told myself that Rachel just wasn't completely over it yet. "All right, let's go now." I smiled and opened the navigation on my phone. After seeing the location for the dinner, I frowned. Why is the venue so far away? I remember it used to be downtown. Why is it now in a suburb near the airport? Rachel's face showed a moment of discomfort, and she stuttered a little. Well, maybe a different place will be a change. They booked it there, so we're just going where they chose. Stop asking so many questions. By the end, Rachel seemed a little annoyed. Not wanting to upset her, I decided to just go along with it and didn't say anything else. An hour later, we arrived at the location of the class reunion. With only 10 minutes left before the event started, most people had already arrived. I held Rachel's hand as we entered the gathering hall. We chose a spot near the corner and started chatting with the other classmates. Ben, after all these years, you and Rachel still don't want kids? Kevin, our class president, joked as he put his arm around my shoulder. I smiled slightly. We're not thinking about it right now. Rachel and I are still enjoying our time together. If we had a kid, we'd probably be a little overwhelmed. Fair enough. Rachel, do you not like kids? Kevin turned to Rachel, but she was looking down, seemingly not paying attention. I gently tapped her. Rachel suddenly looked up, her eyes filled with guilt, as if she'd been caught doing something wrong. What's going on? What are you talking about that I didn't hear? Kevin awkwardly chuckled and scratched his head, quickly changing the subject. Well, your birth control must be pretty effective. 5 years in and no surprises. People nearing their 30s are usually pretty open about topics like this. Just as I was about to respond, Rachel interrupted me. Of course, Ben got a vasectomy. You guys didn't know? When we first started dating, Ben agreed to get one after marriage. If not for that, I never would have married him. Rachel said this with a proud grin, seemingly unaware of how embarrassing her words were for me. The classmates around us all turned pale, and Kevin chuckled awkwardly, looking at me with a hint of mockery. Ah, I see. Ha. I pressed my lips together tightly, unsure how to react. Rachel didn't notice my discomfort, not even glancing at me. All right, you guys chat. I need to go pick someone up. I'll be back to talk later. I grabbed her hand, completely forgetting who she needed to pick up. Rachel impatiently shook off my hand. Stop it, Ben. Watching her walk away, I suddenly felt an uneasy feeling, as though something bad was about to happen. After Rachel left, I lost all interest in talking to others. I couldn't sit still, and a feeling of worry washed over me. Most of our college classmates had arrived. Rachel was naturally reserved, and the only person who could get her to actively go pick someone up was probably Ethan. With this thought, a wave of helplessness came over me. After all these years, had I still not been able to shake off the shadow of Ethan? But then again, maybe Rachel had made other female friends I didn't know about. Should I trust her more? I sighed, struggled internally for a while, and then decided to send Rachel a text. Honey, have you picked them up yet? When will you be back? 1 minute passed, then 2. 10 minutes passed, and Rachel still hadn't replied. I could no longer contain myself. Grabbing my car keys, I rushed out. As soon as I stepped out, I bumped into Rachel and Ethan, walking hand in hand. Seeing me, Rachel's eyes flickered with a brief panic, and she quickly let go of Ethan's hand. Ben, Ethan specifically came back from overseas for the reunion. I went to pick him up. Don't overthink it. Pick him up? I had never heard of someone holding hands when picking someone up at the airport. The lie was so badly done that I didn't even want to call her out on it. Yeah, Ben, don't misunderstand. You know, Rachel and I were each other's first love. Her picking me up at the airport is completely normal, Ethan said, though his tone was full of arrogance, despite his attempt to apologize. I didn't want to argue with them. In my mind, it wasn't worth the trouble. All right, let's talk inside. You help Ethan with his suitcase. He's carrying so many things it's too heavy for him alone, Rachel said, handing me a suitcase. I almost laughed out of anger. So now I was the servant to both of them? Thanks a lot, Ben, my brother. Ethan grinned, looking at me. A cold shiver ran through me, but since we were in a public place, I couldn't say anything. I just took the suitcase from him. Ethan, you haven't been back to the country for a long time, right? How's life overseas? Getting used to it? As soon as we entered, Kevin, our class president, greeted Ethan with a smile. I put the suitcase down and took my seat next to our usual spot. Rachel sat down beside Ethan. Let's not just eat. That's boring. How about we play a little game of truth or dare? Rachel suggested. The others quickly agreed. After all, a reunion that lasted a couple of hours would be pretty dull if we just ate, without doing anything else. Kevin then asked the waiter for a spinning wheel and placed it in the middle of the table. The person the pointer landed on had to face a dare. In the first few rounds, everyone picked dare challenges, like calling their ex to say they missed them, or confessing love to their most hated person. Next, the pointer landed on Rachel. I held my breath, wondering what she would choose. I'm not up for a dare. I'll choose truth, Rachel said, reaching into the pile of cards and slowly reading one aloud. What do you think of your current life situation? Of course, I'm very satisfied. Honestly, women my age, most of them already have kids, and some even have a second child. I actually look down on these people. Why not just live for yourself? Why bring children into this world to torture yourself? Look at me now. I don't even need to work. Someone else makes money for me to spend. I go to the beauty salon several times a week. Can those women who've had kids still compare to me in terms of looking fresh and elegant? As soon as Rachel finished speaking, the room fell into an awkward silence. I wasn't surprised by their reactions, though, because everyone in the room, except for me and Rachel, had children. Rachel's condescending tone undoubtedly made some of them feel upset. Kevin gave a couple of awkward chuckles to ease the tension. Is that so? Well, you and Ben's child-free lifestyle is really nice, he said, trying to smooth things over. All right. Let's move on to the next person. Just as he was about to spin the wheel again, someone in the corner suddenly scoffed. Rachel, since you're so rich, when are you going to reimburse us for our transportation costs? I froze for a second, confused as to why she would ask Rachel to cover the travel expenses. Why? We never had people reimburse transportation before for reunions, I said. She glanced at me and spoke in a slow, deliberate tone. You should ask your good wife. She's the one who insisted on having the reunion in this God-forsaken place. She promised to cover our transportation costs. You people are rich, but for me, $60 for a cab ride is a lot of money. After the woman's words, Rachel showed a displeased expression. Okay, I know. It's just a few dozen bucks. Why make such a big deal about it? I turned and looked at her, stunned. Why didn't you consult with me before making a decision like this? Rachel's expression darkened, and she looked at me with annoyance. Why are you so selfish, Ben? Ethan's been on a long flight, of course. We should pick a place close to him. Don't you get that? Before I could respond, Kevin interrupted, clapping me on the shoulder and quickly changing the topic. Let's not dwell on this. The next person who spun can ask any one person at the table a question. Everyone's faces lit up with excitement, ready to play something more thrilling. After a few seconds, the wheel pointed to Ethan's name. Well, Ethan, you sure have good luck. You've returned and now you've hit the jackpot, Kevin laughed. Ethan was momentarily stunned, then a faint smile spread across his face. Come on, pick someone and ask a question. Let's see some drama. Laughter echoed around the room. Ethan slowly raised his head and looked in Rachel's direction. My heart skipped a beat. I could barely breathe. What kind of question would Ethan ask? Rachel, I heard you're child-free, and you've been married to Ben for 5 years without having any kids. Rachel nodded. Ethan then asked, if you were married to me, would you want to have kids? My heart nearly stopped. I was eager to hear what Rachel would say, and it was clear that everyone else at the reunion was too. Of course I would. Having children with someone you love is a beautiful thing. Rachel answered without a second thought. Her words felt like a slap to my face, wiping away the love I had for her over the past 5 years. The whole room fell silent. Everyone looked at me, some with disdain, some with sympathy, and some with mockery. It seemed that Rachel realized she had made a mistake and started frantically trying to explain herself. No, Ben, don't misunderstand. What I meant was, stop talking. I closed my eyes, feeling as if someone had ripped my heart out. So this is what 5 years of love meant to Rachel. Absolutely nothing. After what felt like an eternity, I opened my eyes and forced out a stiff smile. Rachel, since you and Ethan have mutual feelings, how about we find a time and just get a divorce? Upon hearing this, Rachel looked at me in disbelief. Ben, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? In Rachel's world, I could only be a docile, spineless dog, always following her, always appeasing her. But now, I didn't want to be that way anymore. I ignored Rachel and grabbed the car keys, leaving the gathering hall. It wasn't until I sat in the car that my agitated heart began to calm down a little. I even told myself that if Rachel came looking for me, I could close my eyes and pretend nothing had happened. But after sitting in the car for a long while, I still didn't see any sign of Rachel. I sighed and irritably took out a cigarette. I took one puff but crushed it out. Forget it. Rachel never liked me smoking in the car. I didn't wait for her and drove back home. When I opened the door, Charlie was lying on the rug by the door waiting for me. When she saw me enter, she spun around in excitement and leaped into my arms. Charlie was a stray dog I found on my way to work, not a purebred dog, just a plain local dog. When I first brought her home, Rachel disliked her because she was ugly. Only after I promised I would take care of Charlie myself, feeding her and all, did she reluctantly agree. I patted Charlie's fluffy head, and my mood relaxed a little. You know, what in this world is real? I squatted on the floor, unable to control the turbulent emotions in my heart anymore. Our years of relationship. It was hard to say I didn't care. Looking back at the moments we shared, they still pierced my heart, making it ache. I really couldn't understand when our relationship started to deteriorate. Perhaps, to Rachel, I was always just a fallback choice, a substitute for her first love. No matter how much I tried, I was just a passerby in her life. Thinking of this, my nose tinged with sourness, and I couldn't help but quietly sob. I didn't know why I was being so emotional today. After all, during the toughest times, when I barely had enough money to make ends meet, I didn't shed a single tear. Charlie seemed to notice my low spirits. She curled up in my arms and whimpered, licking the tears off my face. I couldn't help but laugh, and the dark cloud that hung over my heart seemed to dissipate. Forget it. Love is just a spice in life, not a necessity. Whether she loves me or not, I'll just let it go. I grabbed the bath towel that had been dried on the balcony and entered the bathroom. As the warm water washed over me, it felt as though my whole soul was being cleansed. When I came out of the bathroom, it was already close to midnight, and I was so exhausted that I could barely keep my eyes open. It was as if my brain wanted to erase the painful memories, and I collapsed onto the sofa, falling into a deep sleep. I didn't know how long I had slept, but suddenly I felt something pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I jolted awake and saw Rachel, half of her body lying on top of me, her face flushed. On the floor, her 2 high heels were scattered, clearly showing she had drunk quite a bit. I gently shifted her head with both hands, trying not to use too much force as I breathed. Rachel seemed to vaguely notice my movements. She pressed herself even closer to me and mumbled, "Don't leave me. I can't live without you." A pang of bitterness hit my heart. I knew it. After 5 years, No matter how much she didn't like me, there would still be feelings. Rachel wouldn't just give up on me that easily. I chuckled softly and became gentler in my actions. "Ethan, don't leave me. I'll be good. I can't live without you." When I heard Rachel's next words, I felt like I had fallen from heaven to hell. It turned out, it was all my own delusion. From the very beginning, Rachel had never had me in her heart. I couldn't hold back the rage anymore and slapped Rachel twice. "Get up, Rachel, don't lie on me." Rachel opened her eyes at the sound, looking at me with a pitiful gaze. "It hurts. Why didn't you wait for me? I won't forgive you." I sneered. Even now, Rachel was still confusing the issue, and she had no awareness of her own mistakes. I moved her to the other side of the sofa and took my phone, heading for the bedroom. If it were any other time, I would have stayed up, made her hangover soup, helped her remove her makeup, and taken care of her. But now, I had completely seen through her. Since she didn't love me, I decided to let go, to release her, and to release myself. After Rachel's chaotic actions, I lay down on the bed in the bedroom, but sleep was nowhere to be found. I just stared at the ceiling, lost in thought. I don't know how long it passed, but eventually my eyes began to burn from the strain. The soft morning light streamed in through the window. I picked up my phone and realized it was already 5 in the morning. Since I had nothing better to do lying in bed, I decided to change into my work clothes. When I went out to freshen up, Rachel was still curled up on the sofa, her hair messy and makeup smeared. I didn't pay her any attention and took my briefcase as I left the house. If it were in the past, I would have risked being late to make breakfast for Rachel. But now, I no longer wanted to make any effort for someone who didn't love me. There were fewer cars on the road before the morning rush hour. Normally, it would take me 40 minutes to reach the company, but today it only took half that time. As usual, after punching in, I went to my desk and ordered a coffee and a croissant. After breakfast, I got down to work. Finance was my major in college, so I was well versed in it, and without Rachel's constant interruptions, my efficiency was much higher. By the time lunchtime came, I had finished all my morning tasks. During the lunch break, as I picked up my phone, a flood of messages from Rachel popped up. I rubbed my forehead and started reading through them. "Ben, you didn't help me take off my makeup yesterday after I got drunk. Don't you know that it's bad for my skin? You just left me on the sofa by myself. Do you know that when I woke up, my back hurt? And I felt awful? You're so calculative. How are we supposed to continue like this? If you hadn't treated me well in the beginning, do you think I would have stayed with you? You don't even make me breakfast anymore. People really change. If you keep acting this way, I can't deal with it." The screen was filled with a mess of accusations and complaints. I had no energy to go through the rest of the messages. I was utterly drained, both physically and mentally. Rachel was so confident, so sure that I loved her, that I would never leave her. And she was right. Honestly, up until the moment she mentioned Ethan's name, I still loved her. I first met Rachel during our freshman year while doing volunteer work. Back then, to earn extra credits, I often participated in school-sponsored volunteer activities. The first time I saw Rachel, 5 years ago, I felt the same way one does when they meet their first love in a novel. She had long black hair and wore a beautiful white dress, radiating an ethereal charm. Her smile was like a white jasmine flower blooming in a mountain valley. Just one glance, and I was deeply captivated. From then on, I looked forward to the volunteer activities, hoping to see Rachel more often. Rachel had a slow-to-warm-up personality and didn't talk much with the other members of the group. Despite her captivating appearance, not many people dared to approach her. Our friendship developed entirely by chance. One weekend, our club organized a mountain climbing trip, and Rachel happened to be assigned to my group. Due to the club's misjudgment of the weather, it rained heavily that night, and Rachel and I got separated from the others. Rachel wasn't used to hiking, hadn't prepared enough, and her flashlight broke in the rain. She didn't have enough warm clothes either. I took off my rain jacket and held her tightly in my arms all night, until we were rescued by the team the next afternoon. To thank me for saving her life, Rachel invited me out for a meal. She got drunk, mistook me for Ethan, and tearfully asked, "Did Ethan send you to save me? I knew he still loved me." And just like that, I unknowingly became the substitute for Ethan in Rachel's life, and we started dating. I never complained about it. In fact, I considered it an honor to be her substitute for her first love. For 5 years, I pampered Rachel with all my heart, hoping she could temporarily put Ethan behind and pay more attention to me. But now, that wish had been shattered. After the class reunion, I finally understood. No matter how much I did, I would never have a place in Rachel's heart. So, I decided to give up. I didn't blame Rachel for not loving me, but I never expected that when I got home after work, I would find Ethan there. When I opened the door, Rachel and Ethan were sitting at the dining table, laughing and eating together. As soon as she saw me, Rachel froze for a moment, but quickly regained her usual haughty demeanor. "You didn't pick up your phone, didn't reply to my messages, didn't even make me breakfast before you left. Ben, you might as well just die out there." Charlie ran to my feet and barked a few times towards Rachel and Ethan. I suppressed the anger rising in me and sighed deeply. "Why is Ethan back at our house? What are you trying to do? Do you even care about me at all?" Rachel looked at me with disdain, then walked to the bedroom, dragged out a suitcase, and threw it at my feet. "Ethan just returned from abroad. Staying in a hotel is a waste, so I brought him home. What's your problem with that? If you don't like it, then get out. Take that dog with you, too. Ethan's allergic to dog hair, and I don't want him to be threatened by anything." I almost laughed at Rachel's words. How could she say such things without shame? "Why should I leave? I bought this house with my own money. If anyone should leave, it should be you two." At my words, Ethan looked up and glanced at me, his posture one of a winner. Rachel laughed, a smug look crossing her face as she looked at me. "So what? The property deed is in my name. What does it matter that you paid for it? I'll let whoever I want live here. Now take your dog and get out." It was absurd. My love for her had turned into a weapon she used to hurt me. I was on the verge of exploding, but somehow I still managed to hold it in. "Fine, Rachel, let's get a divorce. I'll be waiting for you at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Don't miss it." Rachel didn't respond, but I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes before she quickly suppressed it. I picked up Charlie, grabbed my suitcase, and walked out of the house we had lived in for 5 years. By the time it was 8 or 9 in the evening, it was difficult to find a rental place, so I had no choice but to take Charlie to a nearby hotel. Lying on the hotel bed, I felt, for the first time, that I was a failure. This was the first time I had truly loved someone with all my heart, and yet I ended up being thrown out like this. Looking at it now, I really did feel like one of those cannon-fodder male characters in a novel. I let out a bitter laugh and blocked all of Rachel's contact information. I didn't want to hurt myself for her anymore. The next morning, I asked for leave from my supervisor and, with Charlie, set out to find a place to rent nearby. After spending most of the day, I finally found a place that was both reasonably priced and in a good location. After running around all day, I was nearly exhausted. Charlie was panting heavily, so I took some dog food and poured a bit of water from my bottle into Charlie's small bowl. While scrolling through my phone, a WeChat message popped up. I clicked on it and saw it was from my childhood friend Lily. "Ben, you and Rachel aren't getting a divorce, right?" The next message was a screenshot of a post Rachel had shared on her Moments. "Back to you after all this time." The photo showed her and Ethan holding hands at the movies. After being betrayed by Rachel so many times, my heart was completely indifferent. I only saw them as two clowns. Yeah, if I don't get divorced after being cheated on like this, then I'm really the biggest coward. A few minutes later, Lily sent a comforting sticker. I put down my phone and didn't reply. It had been a week since I moved out, and Rachel had never contacted me first. I even suspected she didn't know I had blocked her. But at this point, I didn't care what she thought of me. On the day I moved out, I had already sent Rachel a message about the divorce, but she had read it and never replied. Since she was ignoring me, I had no choice but to proceed with a legal divorce. In the days after I stopped being with Rachel, I felt much lighter. I no longer had to worry about her meals or sacrifice my work for her, and I didn't have to endure any more of her mistreatment. I thought I would never have any connection with Rachel again, but unexpectedly I saw her standing outside my rented apartment after work. I had planned to take Charlie for a walk after getting home, but when I reached the bottom of the building, I saw Rachel. She was still wearing that white dress, holding a thermos, and when she saw me, her eyes filled with tears as she looked at me. I really didn't want to have anything to do with her anymore. I wanted to pretend I didn't see her, but before I could walk away, she grabbed my wrist. I turned back impatiently, and Rachel wiped her tears, staring into my eyes. "Ben, is it that if I don't come to find you, you'll never come to find me? Why are you pretending you didn't see me?" I had no patience for Rachel's little drama. I shook her hand off and started walking upstairs. Rachel jogged to catch up, her voice filled with grievance. "Don't go, Ben. I burned my hand making this pork rib soup for you. Don't you care about me at all?" I stopped, my voice impatient. "When you said you wanted to have a child with Ethan, didn't you care about me? When you kicked me out, didn't you care about me? What's the point of saying these things now?" Rachel froze, guilt flickering in her eyes, but she still followed me inside. Charlie ran out, wagging his tail to greet me. Rachel seemed to want to save face, so she made a few kissing noises at Charlie, but as she expected, Charlie didn't respond to her. Instead, he ran off to the corner of the living room. Rachel awkwardly smiled and opened the thermos on the coffee table. "Ben, try the soup I made. See if it's good." I was too tired to keep playing along with Rachel. I sighed heavily. "Rachel, what do you want? I really don't have the energy for these meaningless things with you right now." "Ben, only now do I realize that the person I love is you. I understand now that you are the best person for me in this world. Can we go back to the way we were?" I didn't understand what Rachel meant by saying that. I always felt that love, when it came too late, was as cheap as grass. Seeing that I didn't respond, Rachel quickly grabbed my hand. "Ben, really, Ethan is a liar. He already has a wife and children abroad, and he lied to me saying he was single. He's taken all my savings. What am I supposed to do now? Ben, please help me. I promise I'll only love you from now on." I sneered. Everything I had done for her in the past was based on the fact that I loved Rachel. But now that I didn't love her anymore, hearing her talk like this and try to garner sympathy just seemed ridiculous. "Now you say all this, and I just find it funny. This is all your own doing. Half of the money in that card is mine. Remember to pay me back, or else just wait for me to sue you." I pushed Rachel toward the door, took the thermos from the table, and shoved it into her hands. "By the way, we'll meet again." When Rachel heard me say that, her face lit up with excitement. I snorted. "We'll see each other again in divorce court, and by the way, you'll be receiving a subpoena in the next few days, so don't forget to sign for it." The last spark of hope in Rachel's eyes faded. She walked out of my apartment, holding the thermos, looking dazed and lost. "Ben, I love you. Remember, I will always be in a place where you can see me when you turn around." I ignored her and closed the door to my apartment. I hoped this trash would never show up in front of me again. My life had returned to peace, with Rachel no longer causing any trouble. I poured myself into my work, staying so busy that I didn't have the energy to think about all the nonsense anymore. But today, The atmosphere in the office felt a bit different. Every colleague I passed seemed to be whispering to each other. I didn't think much of it at first, assuming they were just gossiping about me as usual. However, I didn't expect to see Rachel causing trouble right after work. As soon as I stepped out of the company building, the entrance was packed with people. I walked toward the crowd, only to spot Rachel and her best friend Lisa blocking the entrance, holding a banner that read, "Ben abandoned Rachel, ignoring his pregnant wife." The crowd grew larger by the second, and when Rachel saw me, her face lit up with excitement. She ran over and grabbed my hand. I stepped back, and Rachel chased after me, whispering in my ear. "Ben, don't blame me. I really had no other choice. Without you, I can't survive. I had to pretend to be pregnant to force you into this. Please don't hate me." "If you agree to get back with me, I'll clear things up with everyone. I won't be child-free anymore. We'll have a lovely baby together. How about it?" Seeing I didn't respond, Lisa, standing by her side, chimed in, acting all righteous. "Ben, you're such a jerk. How heartless can you be? You're abandoning the child Rachel is carrying, your own flesh and blood. I know you want to be child-free, but Rachel has done so much for you. Don't you have any compassion for her? I could feel my temples throbbing. I never thought I'd find myself caught in such a dramatic situation. To the onlookers, my silence seemed like a tacit admission of guilt. I could feel their eyes, filled with judgment and contempt. "Who can guarantee the child is mine?" I raised an eyebrow at Rachel. "Whose could it be if not yours? Ben, don't even try to deny it. How could you be so cruel to hurt such a good girl like Rachel?" Lisa stammered, clearly feeling uneasy. "Lisa, doesn't it feel exciting to be with an older man?" I glanced at Lisa and laughed. Lisa's face turned pale. "What nonsense are you talking about?" "Is it nonsense? You know in your heart, don't you? By the way, I sent those photos of you and the older man at the hotel to your husband," I said, shaking my phone with a grin. As for Lisa's affair, I had Rachel to thank. Though Rachel and Lisa appeared to be close, behind the scenes, Rachel had often bad-mouthed her to me. The affair was something she had confided in me about. Rachel had once vented that while Lisa and her husband seemed happy on the surface, Lisa had been secretly cheating on him with a wealthy, older man. She even went as far as to hook up with him at a hotel while her husband was at work. At the time, I found it amusing, but now that they were trying to grab attention from the public, I decided to stoke the fire a little. In reality, I never actually had any photos of them, nor did I have her husband's contact information. But the affair was Lisa's weak spot. If I pushed just the right button, she'd lash out. Lisa seemed to realize what was happening and turned to Rachel. "I've only told you about this. How would he know? Rachel," for the first time, looked guilty, unable to meet Lisa's gaze. "I didn't mean to say it. I didn't know he'd remember it so clearly." Hearing this, Lisa grabbed Rachel by the hair, and the two of them started fighting. "Rachel, you bitch! You're such a hypocrite. You're the one who's messed up, and you still talk behind my back like this. Don't think I didn't know. You're carrying your first love's child, not Ben's. You came to me to help you put the blame on Ben, and now you're betraying me behind my back. I was blind to help you." Lisa, tall and strong, quickly overpowered Rachel, who was smaller and weaker. In a matter of moments, Lisa slapped Rachel to the ground. Rachel lay there, screaming. In the chaos, Lisa hit her stomach, and blood soaked her pants. The crowd, however, just stood there, motionless, not reacting. Finally, security called an ambulance, and Rachel was taken to the hospital. The crowd around them had filmed the whole ordeal and quickly posted it online, causing a massive stir. Both Rachel and Ethan's personal details were uncovered by netizens, and they were soon trending, being ruthlessly criticized on social media. The next time I saw Rachel, she had been sent to a mental hospital by her family. Ever since her personal information had been exposed, Rachel had been bombarded with harassing texts, and some people had even sent her blades and threatening letters. She had attempted suicide multiple times, but each time she failed, until her family finally decided to put her in a psychiatric institution. When I saw her, she was no longer the glamorous woman she once was. She was dressed in a messy hospital gown, her face streaked with snot and tears, trembling as she curled up in a corner of the bed. When she saw me enter, there was a faint glimmer in her vacant eyes. She stared at me, managing a bitter smile. "Ben, I thought you'd never want to see me again in this lifetime. I know I was wrong. I never meant to hurt you." I took out the divorce agreement and a pen from my bag, handing them to her. "This should be the last time we meet. If you sign this divorce agreement, we'll have no further connection." Rachel forced a bitter laugh as her tears smeared her face. "Ben, do you really have no feelings for me at all now? I know I shouldn't have been with Ethan. I've already accepted my punishment. I can never be a normal person again. Can you let go of the past and forgive me?" I knew Rachel couldn't handle any more emotional shocks, so I softened my tone. "Rachel, I told you. The moment you said you'd rather have Ethan's child, my heart died. You drained all the love I had for you. You want me to forgive you, but does that erase the damage you've done to me? All these years, how have I treated you? On the other hand, how have you treated me? If I could do it all over again, I never would have fallen in love with you." At the end of my words, Rachel's eyes became empty again. She forced out a smile, picked up the pen, and signed the divorce agreement. "Wishing you happiness." I took the signed document from her, feeling noticeably lighter. "You too." After finishing everything, I requested a transfer at work. I needed to leave this place that had caused me so much pain and start a new life. A week later, I boarded a plane with Charlie, heading to a southern city. Once everything was settled, I returned to the same routine I had before, working and living a simple, unremarkable life. The following winter, I received a letter from Rachel. I wasn't sure how she had found my address, but I still decided to open it. "Ben, when you receive this letter, I think I will have already died in the cold winter of the North. To be honest, since you left, I've developed severe depression. I've been lying in a hospital bed, drifting through each day in a haze. I keep dreaming of the first time we met, when we went hiking and were trapped in the mountains by a sudden downpour. I was freezing, too exhausted to move, and then you took off your coat and wrapped it around me, holding me through the night. Whenever I think about it, I feel an overwhelming sense of happiness. But unfortunately back then, I didn't understand what it meant to cherish, and I ended up breaking your heart. I've swallowed countless sleeping pills, hoping to stay in that dream forever, to stay in your warm embrace, because when I wake up, I'm in a world without you, and I have no reason to live anymore. Only in my dreams can I feel your warmth. Only in my dreams can I delude myself into thinking you still love me. How I wish I could die in that rainy night, in your arms, slowly losing my warmth. So at least I'd know you still loved me. If there was a time machine, I'd want to go back to when we first got married. I wouldn't want to be child-free anymore. I would just want to give you a chubby, healthy baby and live as a happy family of 3. I'd want to tell my past self on that fateful night not to meet Ethan, not to make you sad. I'd want to tell the version of myself who brought Ethan home that only you, Ben, are the one I can rely on for the rest of my life. But I can't do that, so I have to end my life and get rid of the dirty version of myself. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I just hope that in the next life, you'll give me a chance to love you. This time, I will actively pursue you, never letting you suffer again. I will love you alone, forever, just as you loved me in this lifetime. By the way, I haven't touched a single cent from the card you gave me. I've deposited all my savings into it, and I've had your friend transfer the full amount into your account. You've worked hard for most of your life for me. It's time for you to live for yourself. I hope you can go see the sights I never got the chance to, experience different cultures, and see the world. And don't forget to buy Charlie more cans of meat and delicious dog food. That's my small way of making it up to him, as his mother. All right, I'm going to sleep now, Ben. I hope your life is smooth and happy from now on, and I hope someone will always love you. After reading the letter, I didn't feel much emotion. I just patted Charlie, who was sleeping on the floor. From now on, my life would be smooth sailing.